I blame a lot of this though on older men. In the 80s and the 90s, men in a position of power, they were just more than happy to say, okay, we'll go out there and hire lots of women and have affirmative action. I don't care. I'm in a position of power. But they sure forgot about their sons.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Welcome to Toward Anarchy. I'm Michael Storm. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, you can follow along at towardanarchy.com. You'll be looking for episode 2606 when we get down to it. When you get there, you'll see that my guest is Marc Defant, and he is a scientist who's challenging how we use science. He's been published in Nature. That's a magazine. I realize that it's 2020. And I may have to explain some of these terminologies. This is a magazine. They print words and pictures, and you can. This is a brand new. This just came out yesterday. Brand new edition of Heavy Metal magazine. But I thought it'd be fun to poke a little bit of fun at you guys who've never held anything in your hands to read it other than a phone or a tablet. National Science Foundation and National Geographic. That's a magazine. National Geographic is a magazine with words. They helped fund his research on volcanoes over the years, and like many of us, he's concerned about the political and social debates being framed as scientific with no particular evidence to support the claim. And like none of the rest of us, that led him to evolutionary psychology and philosophy as science. And now I guess he goes around applying hard science to socio-political narratives. You can find him at marcdefant.com. That's marcdefant.com. And of course, the link's there at towardanarchy.com. Wherever you're catching the show today, give it a like, smash, pound, blast, whatever you got to do to get that like button to pay attention to you and recognize you and let us know that you're out there. We certainly appreciate it. It's the best way that you can help the show. Marc, thank you so much for joining me. You're another one of these guests that I run into on this Podmatch system, and this Podmatch system has just been so great for me. I've met so many great people, and when you reached out and you had the article and you pointed to the things that you were talking about and the things that you've been doing, I just thought, man, yeah, this is another one of these chances to meet somebody who I'm going to find very interesting, is going to have some insight maybe that I haven't thought of. So I went through the paper. I didn't read the whole thing. I just sort of read the abstract and then through the conclusion, because I didn't want to read through the rest of it and answer any questions I might have had about how you reached your conclusion or how you got started on it. So hopefully, as we're going along, we can fill in the gaps. But like we were exchanging there on the Podmatch system, talking about what we may or may not want to talk about specifically. And just in general, this whole idea of all of these debates now, everything that pops up, there's some pseudo-science behind it that suggests it's real when we're talking about a lot of these social issues, and I'm sure we can get to each of them. So I just thought it'd be great to chat with you, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks, Michael, for having me on. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Well, there's a lot going on, and depending on where you're getting your information, you believe certain things about the world and about our politics and our social systems that aren't, they don't have any reality and basis. Everything from the law to the way the people understand the law and our justice system and the founding documents, the very foundation of the nation, and those are not particularly complicated ideas. Some of these other things,
that's true.
Are pretty complicated, and they're confused. How do you even go from climbing around on volcanoes and searching through rocks and such like that to wondering about these political and social debates, because they seem like a world apart?
They are a world apart. I guess I went from the physical world of explosive volcanoes to the much more dastardly world of politics, and I guess I'm not sure which one's more dangerous. But anyway, I guess somewhere in the 1990s, I read a book called The Moral Animal, and I got really interested in. It's by Robert Wright, and it's about evolutionary psychology. And I got really interested in that field and started teaching in my science honors course. I taught a science honors course back then. And I guess I covered evolutionary psychology for a full 10 years or so, and got so interested in it and read everything I could get my hands on that recently I felt like I had enough background in it to start writing some papers related to what I was seeing in feminist studies. Turns out that feminist studies they're vehemently against evolutionary psychology, at least most feminists. And I was quite surprised because it's a field that is pretty well substantiated with data and evidence, and it appeared to me that it just simply did not fit into their ideology. And I think that's quite striking. These are people on a university campus who are supposed to be getting somewhere near the truth when they talk about things in classes. And I felt like this was more of an indoctrination program than the ability for students to learn about something that, had significance in their lives. And so I called them out on it.
That's okay. So you're noting something that has been noted in a lot of different places, and looking at a subject that people have thought these same things about, but you're looking at them from this scientific position as opposed to the political or activist position, and that gives you presumably clarity. But do you necessarily experience a change in speaking with someone, or do you not necessarily even make it a point to sort of change ideas as opposed to just put these things out there and suggest that this is the evidence you have to decide for yourself? Because I've found that it doesn't really seem to matter. It doesn't really seem to make any difference. That you can have science, that you can have math, you can have proof right there in front of your face, and that a lot of these people just don't care.
Shockingly, I think that they don't care. I would agree 100%. I've had a debate with one feminist who was asked to write a counter to my paper, and I found that she just kept saying the same old things, that they constantly say, that evolutionary psychology is taking us back to the Dark Ages, and that it might hurt the movement and those kinds of things. Rather than dealing with the science itself or arguing against that, they don't. They just deflect and go about their merry way. And I find that even more disturbing. I would prefer them to tell me I'm crazy on the facts and argue that way rather than just be dismissive. Ultimately, though, I think science wins out. And I do believe that if we reach the right people with the message, it will have an impact. Jordan Peterson for a long time has been saying a lot of the same things that I've been saying, and he's having a big impact, I think, especially with young males, and that's a target for me too. I want to I feel like the feminist movement is hurting males in general. And I think we need to make it clear what their objectives are. And I think it's to destroy the power structure they perceive that males have in this country. And I'm seeing just the opposite. I feel like males are, well, you know, we have the highest suicide rates compared to women. We more homeless men than women. We have to go fight in wars. Our medical, we have no, you know, women have this, you know, big thing in medicine where there's a lot of initiatives in female medicine. We don't see any of that with men. So I think men are becoming disadvantaged. Certainly more women now go to college and graduate from college than men. There's more women getting PhDs than men. So I feel like this is more of a crisis among men than there is any crisis among women. And I think it's being brought on by over the last decades of feminism. And I don't know what your audience is interested in, but I'm happy to get into the science that supports my claims, if you'd like, or we can just move on to something you're interested in. I don't know.
Well, no, I think it's fairly important to maybe look at the science, because I think that no matter what, my audience is presumably somewhere in between or whatever, outside of the political activist spectrum of ideas, and tries to rely more on the truth and facts and something sort of evidence-based. So I don't think there's any problem with just continuing to investigate the idea further. But I did want to touch on one thing, because I don't want to purposely or even incidentally point sort of fingers at women and say that that this is a problem specifically with women. This is just the problem that we're looking at. It's actually a problem for men too, one that is maybe a little bit newer for men, because it's been, in this same time period that we're talking about, that men have been demonized by this subset of women and this social thinking.
That's what I see.
Manipulation of the politics.
Yes.
And during that time, there have come along toxic men and these toxic representations for men. And I would suggest that the likes of an Andrew Tate, if you know who Andrew Tate is, falls into that category of there's some value in and truth in what's being said, but the very toxic nature of it is, I liken it very much to this later stage feminism that has destroyed it's inserted this idea that it's male toxicity that is a problem with the world, when it's really actually authoritarian toxicity. It's a manipulation from the government and the top down that has allowed a very small subset of the population of women to dictate what a man is supposed to be and what his position in a relationship is supposed to be in relation to women, instead of letting every individual woman and man decide for themselves what those things are to be. These people like the Andrew Tates and then this late stage feminism have inserted these false ideas in there about individual power being more important, and that placing an arbitrary high value on women. I just wanted to bring up the male part of it, because it's just something that it hit my mind not that long ago, sort of watching an Andrew Tate something or other, across there. I was thinking, you know what this is? This is the male version of toxic feminism.
Oh, I've had some people tell me that before. I agree with you. What I've been doing is what evolutionary psychology does. Is it documents that the behavioral differences between men and women are real, and we've inherited them from our living in hunter-gatherer society. What the feminist movement is trying to say is that we are socially constructed. That is, that we're born with completely blank slates. We have no if you will, instincts when we're born, and that culture is everything that makes us the way we are. Evolutionary psychologists don't deny that culture has impact on us. For example, money, we wouldn't think without culture we would give no significance to money. So certainly there are some things that are socially constructed, but gender and even some people say sex, they're not socially constructed. This is a physical adaptation. We behave masculine and feminine, and we have those behaviors because that's what attracts the opposite sex, and that's what it's all about. Whether you that is evolution. That's what evolution is all about. Whether you pass your genes on or not. I'm not saying that you're good if you pass your genes on, or you're bad if you don't. I'm just saying that nature works on that premise, and so the idea that our behavior is somehow socially constructed seems to be a hastily arrived at conclusion that certainly supports their ideology, but doesn't support any reality. So my argument is that we've got to stop listening to this toxic masculinity that you brought up. Drives me crazy. There are some bad things about masculinity. For example, men are much more violent than women, but that's primarily because we have 10 times the amount of testosterone that women have. So women aren't as violent, but at the same time, that testosterone is what makes us good protectors. It's what makes us great hunters when we were out there trying to bring down high protein animals to feed the family and the society or the tribe. So there are a lot of damn good things about being masculine, and I don't think that men should be denigrated because we're masculine. And it just becomes so ingrained in our culture that I feel like men are sort of afraid to deny their masculine, or they're afraid to have masculinity. I see the universities becoming feminized. It seems like there's a hatred towards anything that they perceive as masculine, and God forbid if we had men that are masculine in the university. So, yeah, I think you're at a disadvantage if you're masculine in our universities. Seems to be feminism is the du jour, the way to be, so to speak.
Well, so I take it that they then deny this evolutionary science ultimately because they're saying that because these things are a social construct, and yeah, they may be a social construct, but they're a deeply ingrained social construct that goes back many days, couple weeks, couple million years probably. There's something that have developed over time, and those roles are fairly natural and accepted. So yes. They deny them though because they can change them, because today they
you hit on
choice.
It. That's exactly right. They want to be able to change us. So I think the ultimate goal of the feminist movement is to make us all alike. They believe, yes, they believe that women are equal to men in every case, except physically. I think they do admit that there are physical differences between men and women, astonishingly. And my point is, well, if we've inherited through evolution physical differences, shouldn't we also have inherited some behavioral differences too? And they're like, oh, no, that's not true. We get everything through our culture. So if you don't mind, let me go back a little bit, because you mentioned millions of years. You're right. It has been millions of years. We started evolving towards Homo sapiens somewhere between 7 and 4 million years ago. That's when we believe that humans or our ancestors came out of trees, started walking on the savanna. And we see a lot of evidence for that in the fossils that have been found. We were walking upright at least 7 million years ago. And we had brains about that time the size a little bit bigger than a chimpanzee. And throughout time living on the savannah, that brain evolved from a sort of a chimpanzee size to the brains we have today, which is an incredible change physically, as well as, of course, our abilities to think. And we still don't know precisely what caused that fast brain development. Probably something out there on the savannah for survival. But
well, I imagine it's just a lot of it is just the drastic difference of a tree life versus a ground life, and knowing that that what you do with your hands and what you have to do to adapt and manipulate your environment around you, the more you do it, the more it creates physical pathways in your brain to create shorter paths between the communication here and here. Those physical pathways are created in the brain, so it stands to reason that it's not small enough to have all of these physical pathways, that over that shorter period of time it has to grow to keep up with it. That's what comes to me as soon as you said that.
Well, I think your point is well taken. Communication may have been the reason why we have big brains. You have to detect whether people are lying or not. You have to get into social structures and understand that social. So it required big brains, and big brains were probably successful in that social environment. I think that all played in. It might have even been language that helped us develop large brains. Yeah. But whatever it was, it happened in a relatively short time, and that had a huge impact on the way we behave. For example, a fetus could not come to full development within a woman because the female delivery system is not large enough to handle the big brains. So fetus come out about only 25% of brain development, and when a fetus comes out and becomes a baby, you've got a totally dependent, and anyone that has kids knows that baby is completely dependent on the mother and the father. And so this changed behavior in women to something that we don't see much in the animal kingdom, and that is that women started looking for men that gave them parental investment. We call it parental investment. What it means is they started looking for men that would give support to the family and the child and, of course, the woman. And that led to a selection process where men agreed to help out with the raising of children, and they got what they wanted, which was sex. They got access to the female. And this is why, by the way, one of the reasons why women are more hesitant to have sex indiscriminately than men are. It's primarily due to the fact that they might be stuck raising a baby, which probably doesn't surprise anybody. And particularly in hunter-gatherer society, you could imagine how difficult it would have been in hunter-gatherer society if you didn't have the help of a male supporting you. For protection from other men, for one thing. If you're single and a female, you were subject to stress from other males. So all of this leads to the selection of men by women who were masculine. That is, they were willing to go out and earn the bacon, so to speak, hunt wild animals, required a lot of male interaction to hunt those large beasts. It was also men that had to be brave. These were animals that could kill them. We don't think of that, but a deer or a moose can be very dangerous if you're out there hunting them with, spears or whatever humans hunted those beasts with. Depends on what time in the sequence. But Homo sapiens ended up then being unusual in the animal kingdom because we have this male parental investment. A lot of times males just contribute sperm and leave, and they leave the female to raise the offspring. So it's led to what I call an evolutionary patriarchy. We evolved to have men that tend to be leaders and women that tend to want to raise children. And it's not surprising then that men in society early on have been the leaders in those societies. And it's really been for the last 40 or 50 years where women have started to see freedoms in our society because men have agreed to relinquish some of those positions. What I will tell you that patriarchy is not, is it's not a bunch of men getting together and trying to figure out how to repress women or subjugate them, which is what women say, or feminists say, the patriarchy is. What the patriarchy was is a natural evolution of this male-female interaction. And we're addressing those issues today. I've said a lot, so I'll kind of give you a chance to see if there's any area that
you're not leaving me behind. This is.
Oh, I didn't mean that. I just meant.
And the rest of them, they're never going to catch up. So.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's just. I don't know. It's upsetting to me to see women trying to paint men as such bad creatures when we're really not. Yeah, we do commit violence. We do commit more crime than women. But that's, I guess, in somewhat the price to pay for women selecting men the way they are.
Yeah, absolutely, and particularly if you're this far down the road and you go ahead and you allow every sort of social movement or political ideology to infect what you. It's all about these personal experiences, right? You have a woman who's jilted, and then she hates men, and then she hears a story about independence, and you don't need no man, you can do it all on your own, you can take care of yourself, and the men are worthless, and you're just a sperm bank to them. They don't, they're just a sperm bank to you, and that's all you need them for, and that's even if you want to ruin your body and your health with having a baby and not pursue the things that are important to you. And that's not to say that none of that is true. It's just to say that it's probably not true for most people, and it's probably not the best thing for a relatively stable society. I think it's fairly obvious that as this sort of late-stage feminism, whatever they call it, as this later feminism has grasped onto the entire culture, and that it coincides with the rise of incels and the decrease in the family units and the decrease in the birth rate in general.
No kidding.
These are all things that are contributing to this, and it's all under a lie that every woman is going to be. I remember it very specifically being a thing when I went to college. Basically, when I went to K-State, basically when we showed up, they do this all over now. This is a thing that's fairly regular, but 30 years ago when I went to college, it wasn't necessarily the thing. But basically, they brought us into the room, all the freshmen. They brought us into this theater, and they sat us down, and they basically said, if you're a woman, that guy right there, and that guy right there, and that guy right there are going to rape you. That's the odds,
Yeah, I know. And that's what DEI has done on campuses. They've put males at an incredible disadvantage. For example, I think they're kind of kangaroo courts in a way. They sit in judgment of males. Males cannot bring in any kind of lawyer to help them in these hearings. A lot of times a student will be kicked out of campus based on what the woman says without any kind of ability to argue against it. Now, I'm not saying rape isn't a serious problem, but campuses are one of the safest places on the planet for women. So I would just say that, I think men have to be really careful, really, really careful, because, we have this angry feminist out there that, is certainly willing to take our rights away. And, this whole idea that we should believe women, as if every statement a woman has ever made must be right. We all, I think most of us as men, we love women. I know I do. I got a wife and daughter and had a mother and have a sister. So but I think that we sometimes lose track of, how we can be taken advantage of by this love we have of women. And, I think that women are just great in general, but there's this fringe out there that is very powerful and wants to take away a lot of our freedoms, and is doing so quite effectively. I would just point to you for example, one thing that comes to mind is the soccer teams in the United States. Look at the difference between women's soccer in America versus men's soccer. Men make much more money in U.S. soccer than women do, and yet the women's team is heavily funded and the men's team is not. There's no support out there in the college level for men's soccer. So it's not surprising that we go to the Olympics and never place in soccer, but the women are out there winning gold medals at many Olympics. So, yeah, I see a dichotomy developing here, and I find it kind of concerning, particularly in the idea of constantly using affirmative action to hire women, particularly in fields where women don't show any interest in. There's this big effort to get women into computer science. Well, women aren't interested in computer science. Study after study shows that they're not interested in STEM as much as they are social issues. And yet that's simply denied, and they move on trying to get more women into these fields. Even trying to open up, nursing to men. Well, men don't want to be nurses, so in general. If you want to be a nurse, that's fine.
There's some that care.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. If you want to be a nurse, that's fine, but don't force us to be nurses. It's an interesting
thing because there's a parallel, and because this is, the whole female problem here that we're talking about is infected sort of every aspect of life, and it's the same thing. What you're talking about is exactly what's happened to Marvel and Disney and Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
this Kathleen Kennedy just left Star Wars, left Lucasfilm there because she just spent the last 10 years destroying it, trying to do exactly what you're talking about: shove Star Wars and space adventure down little girls' throats when they're not really interested. And so it shows the same problem all the way through, and it shows the same results at the end of it. And there's nothing good about it, but we keep playing the game. We keep rolling the dice,
No, Hollywood is, not us.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. That's it. No, we're drug into it. That's that's the political problem. That's where every social problem becomes a political problem, and the rest of us have to pay for it.
Well, just take a look at films. How many times have we seen a woman come in and beat up 25 guys, in a karate fest or something? I mean, once in a while, maybe that would be nice, but we seem to be bombarded by this: women are physically the same or better than men. And, in the field of, there's not much question about men being physically superior to women. That doesn't mean that women are inferior in other aspects.
It's not the same statement.
We're just saying biology is there. So why are we seeing this in movies? And what's Hollywood after? I think it's generally trying to make all of us equal, all of us look equal when we're not. And my only concern is that if we keep down this pace, I think men are going to find themselves continually giving up many of the things, like, for example, affirmative action is destroying opportunities by men. We're not hiring the most meritorious. We're using it on the basis of skin color or gender. And this is, I find, destroying our country in many ways. China is not doing that. They're not, going, oh, yeah, we need to hire this many people here and this many people there. Hey, how about we use merit only?
Yeah, it is the bigger concern, because that's right. That's where it manifests itself. It would be fine if it would just keep itself in this small subset of the population that actually have a problem, as opposed to it leaking out and infecting everybody else. And even if they themselves, even if a particular woman doesn't accept the ideology, everyone, not everyone around, but people around her do, and that has had the effect on the men, the opportunities, the prospects that woman has. I don't see it getting particularly better, because it's right in line with it.
I agree.
Yeah, it's right in line with everything that happens politically. That's part of the real problem. Again, like I just said, is that all of these social problems then become a political problem, and then they become everybody's problem, because they become socialized problems instead of just a social problem that certain social groups are dealing with. And that's the danger, is that it waters down everything. It waters down the talent pool. It waters down for what little talent there is, the talent pool of politics.
Yeah, and I blame a lot of this though on older men. In the 80s and the 90s, men in a position of power, they were just more than happy to say, okay, we'll go out there and hire lots of women and have affirmative action. I don't care. I'm in a position of power. But they sure forgot about their sons when they did all of that. And, I have a daughter, but I don't want men, being that are more meritorious, her taking the position, and I don't think she wants to either. So I think we've got to reassess where society is going here. Fortunately, I won't get into that, but it seems like lately we have started to get this DEI stuff out of our system, and that's a real bad system, boy.
Well, yeah, because it's not the end result, but it's sort of one of those transitional things.
Oh, I agree.
That takes this toxicity and this failure, this race to the bottom, to a whole nother level, because you're purposely setting out to say that there's a certain group that you're not even going to look at, that it doesn't matter what their skill set is, nothing matters. You're just setting this entire group of possibilities aside, and if nothing else, that just reduces the pool that you can choose from, the pool of talent that you have to choose from, which is never a good idea. You're always wanting to expand the talent pool. That's the problem with DEI, is that it replaces the entire notion of what creates a meritocracy, what is considered meritorious, actions, behaviors. It turns it into a secondary feature to, well, you got to hire the person first, and it gives you this illusion that diversity is something other than a diversity of talent, but that it's a diversity of color, that you should be able to see it, that you should be able to see the blue hair and the pink hair and the dark skin, and that you should be able to tell that that's why we're diverse. Well, yeah, that's diverse in color.
Yeah, it's all very good point. I think that diversity was a way to. We started using the term diversity, I remember, because affirmative action got to be something bad, and people didn't like affirmative action, so they switched to diversity to make us believe that diversity was somehow good. They never told us how diversity was good. So I've never really completely understood why diversity is more important than merit, but we keep hearing this constantly, and I hear men parrot this all the time. Well, tell me how diversity is so good. And does it really mean that, men are 80% in computer science? Does that mean that, we have to get it 50-50 because somehow diversity is going to make that feel better? I don't think so. So So I constantly see this idea that any discrepancy is not taken as something behavioral, that is, men and women choosing different fields. It's taken as there must be discrimination going on there. And that is just plain wrong. It's a wrong mentality. There's no discrimination. And I'm very confident to say that. There's no discrimination going on when we have more men going into computer science. Women economists have shown through their research that is not happening. Men tend to go into things like engineering and computer science because they're more interested in things than people. And women tend to go into social things, nursing, medical fields, because they're more interested in people. It goes back to this maternal, they have estrogen in their system. Hormones that we have shown give them maternal instincts. So we know from the physical world that they have, men and women definitely have different ideas of what they want to get into. And yet we're fighting this because of DEI, and we're told, that there's massive discrimination going on and men trying to suppress women all the time. And nothing could be further from the truth. But a lot of young students I see come in, male students in particular, believe this. It's astonishing to me that they accept this unquestionably.
Well, yeah,
and I'd like
to exactly what I was talking about earlier, where it doesn't matter if a particular woman or individual believes any of these ideologies. The men that are around them do, because their mother taught it to them, or their sister taught it to her, beat them into her, the last girlfriend beat
or society taught it to them. I agree.
Dangerous. It's kind of scary. I think you're like me. I don't think you see an end to it because I think our political system is geared such that it sets us up for failure. The political system can be co-opted by small groups with their ideologies and their machinations about the way things should be, and they can cause great damage just simply because of the fact that once you get something institutionalized, it's almost impossible to turn that back.
I agree. It's called the tyranny of the minorities. In fact, our early forefathers worried about this. We're certainly seeing it today, where a minority can be very powerful in our society.
Which isn't a bad thing per se, except that...
No, it's not.
The problem is that the government itself, the whole power structure itself is faulty, if you ask somebody like me, obviously, because it's based on the premise that you can take power that you don't have as an individual and through some magical voting ceremony give that power to somebody else. And now as a collective, when I couldn't rob my neighbor, I had no moral, legal right to take what belongs to my neighbor, but now my neighbor on the other side and I agreed that his stuff is forfeit, and it's just automatically forfeit. That's the base premise of our democracy, and the idea that you can vote to give somebody power, and once you have that failed basis for your society, everything that gets into that political system is going to be something that is a manipulation of some reality. It's not the real thing. I would argue that everything we see around us is built in spite of these manipulations and these people that try to control things, and that the best of the things that we have around us exist in spite of government, and that these control systems have never ever produced anything better. They certainly have never done it in America, because you can look at America and there's America the idea, and then there's America the reality, and the reality continues to be worse and worse. We're going through a period right now that's unlike anything that America itself has ever experienced, and we have the so-called conservative right party and people, the ones that believe in the founding of this nation, looking at the very foundational ideas and going, that's not important right now. What's important is the color of the skin, and that guy's going to get my job.
I agree. We have a republic not a democracy. So fortunately,
they keep saying that.
We have a republic in the sense that we go along with the majority with certain rights set aside for the minorities. But I think over the years, the minorities have taken full advantage, if not more so than they deserve. So I think that's a concern. And it's interesting, women, even though they're the majority, are considered a minority. So
well, it's sense. Because they're a minority in a space, right? And that's the Overton window problem, and it's something that's used everywhere and everything, whether people realize that that's what it is or not. You're just looking at this small little space. You got this whole big old picture right here, but all you're seeing is this right here. And if they want to adjust what you're seeing, they just kind of move this over here a little bit. And most of them at this point, their Overton window is kind of real. It's a real thing. It's about this big.
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah, we'll have to see where it all ends up, because I sit here and I talk about it every week, every single day of my life. What's getting better? What's changing? Are they fixing something? Have they ever fixed anything? So far, all I get is a resounding no. There's nothing. All it is more and more special interest trying to capture various aspects of the political and social system to force everybody else to behave or accept them for what they are, while at the same time hating everything and failing to accept the people that they're trying to make them accept. It's just this hypocritical circular logic and fight that I don't see. It just ratchets up. It never goes back down. It never gets better, because nothing is ever solved. Everybody's just one-upping the next one.
Well, I do see something happening now where I think people are starting to step forward and speak up a little bit more. I think one of the things Trump has done is he's kind of silenced cancel culture a little bit. So I've been able to get some support from administration and at least having free speech where I can safely speak up. I didn't feel that way 5 or 10 years ago.
Well, I mean, what's Jordan Peterson, right? He's right there in the same space that you're at, and you see what happened to him and how it has affected everything that he's done since then. It's been an issue. Yeah, that's crazy.
I agree. It is. But at least now we're seeing more people speak up, I think. I hope, anyway. A lot of organizations that are protecting students from educators that are woke, that have been indoctrinated in our universities and come out. DEI, we were talking about earlier, it's all based on this critical theory, which you probably heard of it as critical race theory, but it's critical theory is a Marxist dogma that's been integrated throughout the universities. And DEI is sort of a result of that. And I think people say, well, it's just about people getting their rights, and no, it's not. It's about taking power away from certain people and giving it to others. And that's the basis of critical theory. If you get into critical theory and read about it, you get into Foucault and some of these other philosophers who talk about society in terms of power. And feminists have really picked this up by saying, constantly drumming this idea of patriarchy into our mind, where they constantly suggesting that men are in complete power, when nothing could be further from the truth. Everything seems to be now leaning towards, favoritism towards women. So I would argue that, we've got to kind of attack this before it, balloons even more. And I already sense that men are somewhat of a second-class citizens in our society, and we're becoming more so all the time.
Certainly, there's a portion of them that are, and it's unfortunate because they're the ones that need the most help. They're the ones that were already going to struggle, that they were already going to have a hard time finding a particular mate or settling down because they're not particularly desirable. They're not powerful. They don't have a lot of money. They're just a normal person. Maybe they don't look that great, whatever. And that, so they were already got a strike against them. And then you go out and you set up this pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-scientific hierarchy system that is controlled by emotion as opposed to really truly just merit. We keep going back to that word, but it's so important because merit is what makes things improve. It's what makes things get better. You earn the right to say that what you do, the work that you put out, the knowledge that you have, whatever it is better. It's more. It gives you a different insight into what it is you're trying to accomplish, whether it's life or work or whatever it is, than the previous guy, and that's why you're where you're at. And there's no denying that with any of these people that these old white guys that you're talking about that allowed this to happen, that said, well, that's just fine. We'll just go. I'm in power, so I'm not worried about it affecting my power structure. But it certainly messed it up for anybody else. And this is a lot of the men, again, that they're already at that disadvantage because it's already natural for the women to make the decision in a relationship. It's their call. They're the ones that have that power. They can either decide they want to stay with the man or not, or be with the man at all in the first place. And so they already have that level of power. And you just stack all these things against him. You stack all these things against the young men, and you have this culture of blaming. Was the Me Too culture, right? We were talking about that just a little bit. These little sort of kangaroo courts that they're having in the colleges and other places. Hell, in our actual court system, with the Johnny Depps and some of these other guys that have had to face these claims by some of these women, and it's just been for so long now that if a woman cries foul, that clearly it must be true. There's no reason why she would lie. Why would she use that to get further her own interest?
Yeah, I agree. If I could send one message to the young men out there, I would say that maybe a lot of men think that women put as much emphasis on good looks as men do, and that turns out to be cross-culturally. We find that men are very consistent in what they're looking for, and women are very consistent in what they're looking for, and women are looking for men that can bring home resources. So if you're not a particularly good-looking guy, I say worry not. A lot of men don't realize that they're alpha males. If you're going to college, like you say, or if you're in a field like you're an electrician where you're making very good money, these are things that you should be proud of, and they're bringing home the bacon, so to speak, and that's really what women want. They want men that are going to support that family, and so I feel bad for a lot of men because they've been beaten down by women and or just by society, not necessarily by women. It's hard to get yourself out there and be turned down a lot. So emphasize the things about yourself that women will find attractive, like having a good job, or being a go-getter, or being kind, a loving father.
That's one thing I tell my own son. I say, man, if you want to attract a woman, keep yourself clean and be nice. That's all you got to do.
It's very important.
That's it.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
They're really looking for. I mean, they want some confidence. They want to see, but they're not necessarily looking for specifically the square jaw, absolutely guaranteed to bring home the bacon, I guess you could say. I mean, they want somebody they can trust, somebody that they feel secure in, that when they go to sleep at night, that he's not going to disappear, that he'll still be there watching over the family,
exactly.
And that his watching over the family is actually protecting them, that he's not just so boastful, sort of not capable of being a man. There's this toxic masculinity conversation that's running in the background here, and when the reality is that a strong man is a dangerous man, is a man who knows that he's dangerous and controls himself. That's what makes a good strong man, is the man who recognizes that he can cause great harm and doesn't. The guy that isn't capable of causing great harm, who cares?
Well, and we should be constantly. I feel so bad because I see a lot of women out there that would like to be in relationships. Right. It's just like we're not hooking up. Maybe it's because we've all gone back to being in on social platforms, and we haven't found ways to get out there and meet each other. But I would love it if we had more ways for young men to meet young women, and yet it seems like there are a lot of barriers to that right now. And it's not a way where men have to develop confidence with women. And it's very hard to do that when you're, talking to someone with a screen between you, whether it's a phone or a, computer or whatever. So
especially men, because again, we've been talking about this all along. With the men, everything is sort of tactile and external. And,
yes.
That's what makes them happy, is being able to manipulate the universe around them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree.
We're down to like the last couple minutes here. We have about 2 minutes or so. Is there anything that you haven't said that you should say, you'd like to say, a piece of advice, whatever it is?
Well, I'm just trying to encourage young men. It's a tough road right now, particularly when you go to jobs and you're told we're looking for women, and you don't fit the bill. But I think men need to start insisting, on equal treatment and merit as the reason. And I think some of us old farts can help out that way by emphasizing that right now society is not fair towards men, and we're discriminating against men for simply being men, and that seems very, very wrong to me, as wrong as any previous discriminations against any group, and we should start recognizing that and dealing with it.
Yeah, I think if we don't, it's it's certainly going to ensure that we stay on the path that we're headed now. It's maybe not the thing that's going to change America, but it's certainly right in there in the sort of things that it's going to make it possible to change America. Because again, we're talking about these captures, the tyranny of the majority. That's the short of it. Yeah, it really truly is that. And as long as we're in that position, it's never going to get better.
I agree.
And so it really won't matter. It just won't matter what the men or the women think, because the system is what controls us all. And right now, toxic feminism is a part of the system. It's ingrained into the system. And thank you, Mark, for being out there and fighting against it and using the science to do it, because just having the conversation, it hasn't necessarily changed things a lot.
No, I understand that. Well, thanks for having me, Michael.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
appreciate that.
Anytime, my friend. There's a million more things that we could talk about, going over
for sure.
Sort of your bio and your history and everything, and maybe we'll get a chance to do that again sometime. We got to let you go, though. MarcDefant.com, and, of course, everything you need to know about him will be at TowardAnarchy.com, episode 2606, and we'll see all of you next week. Until then, take care.
The single biggest intellectual error during my political lifetime has been to confuse freedom with equality. In fact, equality, being an unnatural condition which can only be enforced by the state, is usually the enemy of liberty.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network.